Hi, and welcome to the To Be Read podcast, where we give honest reviews on viral books you may see on social media and popular book review websites. This is Chris.
And Harrison, and on today's episode, we will be discussing I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. So cozy on in, and let's see if you should add this book to your TBR shelf. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the TBR podcast. We are so excited to be doing today's episode on I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. This is our second memoir we have done. And yeah, I'm very excited to hear what Chris has to say about it. I feel like this book was a very heavy book emotionally. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. But first, I'm going to read the synopsis, and then we'll give the rating and what our rating is and get into it. So here we go. A heartbreaking and hilarious memoir by iCarly and Sam and Cat star Jennette McCurdy about her struggles as a former child actor, including eating disorders, addiction, and a complicated relationship with her overbearing mother, and how she retook control of her life. Jennette McCurdy was 6 years old when she had her first acting audition. Her mother's dream was for her only daughter to become a star, and Jennette would do anything to make her mother happy. So she went along with what Mom called calorie restriction, eating little and weighing herself 5 times a day. She endured extensive at-home makeovers while Mom chided, "Your eyelashes are invisible, okay? Do you think Dakota Fanning doesn't tint hers?" She was even showered by Mom until age 16 while sharing her diaries, email, and all of her income. I'm glad my mom died. Jennette recounts all of this in conflicting detail, just as she chronicles what happens when the dream finally comes true. Cast in a new Nickelodeon series called iCarly, she is thrust into fame. Though Mom is ecstatic, emailing fan club moderators and getting on a first-name basis with the paparazzi. Hi, Gail. Jennette is riddled with anxiety, shame, and self-loathing, which manifests into eating disorders, addiction, and a series of unhealthy relationships. These issues only get worse when, soon after taking the lead in the iCarly spinoff Sam and Cat alongside Ariana Grande, her mother dies of cancer. Finally, after discovering therapy and quitting acting, Jennette embarks on recovery and decides for the first time in her life what she really wants. Told with refreshing candor and dark humor, I'm Glad My Mom Died is an inspiring story of resilience, independence, and the joy of shampooing your own hair. Goodreads has this rated at 4.45 stars with 1.2 million ratings, and it was the Goodreads Choice Awards for winner for Reader's Favorite Memoir and Autobiography in 2022. So, before we give our ratings, I am just going to give a disclaimer. Of course, we're going to be giving some spoilers about the book, but also just kind of some trigger warnings I think you can get from the memoir. It does talk about eating disorders and addiction, and yeah, so if you have any of those trigger warnings, then this episode might be difficult for you to look or listen to. You can skip to the end. We'll put on the screen the time to skip to just to see what our overall feeling of the book is, like we did on our TikTok and Instagram. We posted for our last book just like some quick, like our rating, would we recommend it, things like that. So we'll post that on here, and we'll put a timestamp on the screen right now so you can go to the end and see if we think you should read it or not. And please read at your own discretion with this. I definitely cried in some moments, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a heavier book than I think even the Britney Spears memoir that we did. So,
I agree with that.
Chris, what was your rating?
4 stars.
Okay. I actually gave this a 5.
Wow.
Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed it. Again, I was very emotional reading it, but I think she told it very well. And I liked how short each of her chapters were, because it was so heavy hitting that I did need a break after some intense moments. And I was like, okay, this is great, because she made each chapter so small that you were able to have those breaks.
I agree.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, so I rated it 4 stars, and it's not because I didn't like the book or anything like that. Um, I I feel like I understand like the whole entirety of the book was solely based upon like her acting career, things with her mom, how those two played a part. We got into a little bit of like the um, like boyfriends and dating and stuff like that. But I kind of was a little disappointed that there wasn't as much like iCarly content since that was such a
okay.
pinnacle turning point for her career.
Gotcha.
And
And I'm
so,
sure she endured some trauma with that too.
right. But obviously, like, I understand that the whole preface of the book is about her mom and that
Mhm.
her mom really wasn't like there for the entirety or the majority. I don't really know. But like, it seemed as if like her mom was sick through a good portion of her iCarly
iCarly.
years.
I think
And
so.
so like I don't know, it felt like during the iCarly years that's when she really dove heavy into like the talk about like her anorexia and bulimia, and I do appreciate her shedding some light on like how that sickness actually is,
Mhm.
and the like mental game that you have to play with yourself and even going to therapy. But like I wish that she would have dove in a little bit more to like her like iCarly gears and being on set for that, because I feel
Mhm.
like that has to play a huge part and part of all of that.
I can see what you're saying. I
So
think she, what was I going to say? I think most of what she dealt with, like towards the end, was during Sam and Cat, and I think that's maybe why she only really talked about that, and maybe because she also had a friend in Miranda when she did iCarly,
yeah,
so maybe it wasn't as hard on her because she had someone she could
that's
get
fair.
away from, like because she talked about her and Miranda's friendship and stuff, and she didn't really have any friends on Sam and Cat. Her and Ariana weren't friends.
Yeah,
So maybe it wasn't as hard on her. I'm sure it was still hard, but not as hard because she had someone to escape reality with because she had a friend there.
yeah. If you had to give this book like a one word description, what
Mhm.
would you give it?
Brave. Yeah, I think mainly because, first of all, it's very brave that she wrote this. Um, I could never write about my personal childhood trauma that I went through, and release it to the public like this. And she was brave and even going to therapy and getting help, even though she says in the book she only did it to try to save her relationship with Caleb. Is that his name? Which, side note, the names she says in the books aren't actual people's names besides Miranda and like her co-stars.
Yeah,
But when she talks about like Liam, her first situationship, and Caleb, that's not the actual people's names. She even her therapist, I don't think that's her actual therapist's name.
yeah,
But um yeah, I think she was just very brave in writing this and brave in getting the help that she definitely needed, and brave, and I'm sure she's probably still in therapy. At least I hope she would be, because that's a lot to be going through in such a young life. Because me and her, I think the same age or close to the same age or something like that. That would be my word. Brave. What would yours be?
Uh, sorry, in that tone, because the amount of times that I was like, what? Sorry, huh? Was astronomical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it would be, sorry, question mark?
Yeah. Especially, um, I told Lathan because he asked me like when I was reading it, um, how I felt because I just there were moments where I just had to put the book down because I just would either be crying or just to be so like I can't believe this would happen mainly because I'm a mom myself. I could never imagine
Yeah.
telling my kid when they are 11 years old and going through puberty, "Oh, just restrict your calories like I do and you'll stop growing."
Well, and like the fact that the fact I'm so right there with you because I would never want my son to literally think about every single choice that he makes and how it affects me. Like as his mom, it's my job to support him and to help him grow in a way that he desires while also teaching him life lessons,
Yeah.
right? But like life lessons is not order the dressing on the side.
We're going to share a meal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so insane. Oh, like the fact that like she was devastated about the fact that people would be like, "Oh, she's growing so big," or "Man, she's just getting older, isn't she?" And she's sitting there like sad about that because her mom makes her feel like she needs to be little for forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very curious what her relationship now is with her dad and her siblings and her grandparents. Um, I'm curious what her siblings' relationship are because they obviously went through some things too. Because they're both their parents. Their dad was just even though at the end you find out he's not their biological dad, but um, I just don't understand why no adult stepped in. I really don't. I think that's anytime I hear stories like this and you see things happening, um, her grandparents and her dad, I don't understand how they
Well,
weren't
especially
like,
when the doctors are even like, anorexia. I'm concerned about her weight. And like her mom's just like pushing it off. Oh, I haven't noticed anything. Like for me, that's like a huge red flag. Like, how do you not notice that your daughter has lost so much weight?
yeah, yeah, because when my little one was 4 months old, between 4 months and 6 months old, he didn't gain any weight, and we had to go in like almost twice, like every other week, to get him weighed to see what was going on. And I was like freaking devastated because I was like, what am I doing wrong? He wouldn't take formula because we were trying to like do both breastfeeding and formula to try to get him to gain weight, and he wouldn't do it. And I was just like, I'm over here freaking out, and she's over here like, oh no, you just need to lose some weight. Like,
Yeah.
that's the part where I had to put the book down and I couldn't read it for the rest of the day because I was like, I was over here like blaming myself for my kid not gaining weight. He was a baby and she's over here trying to get her kid to lose weight and she's already small. Like I
It
just
breaks my heart even like I understand that like she's famous, she worked, she's probably like got some money, whatever, right? But like it concerns me that like, and it breaks my heart that like she was a child and never got a childhood.
yeah.
And like some kids like they are all for acting and want to do it, and yeah, they have some hardships, like but I don't know, like especially with memoirs and stuff, you hear so often about how like child actors were actually like forced into it by their parents,
Hmm.
and it makes it so tough to read about, especially as a parent,
Yeah.
because I would never want that for my kid.
Yeah. And she even mentioned how like childhood actors have a hard time branching out after being childhood actors and like being taken seriously when they get older. And I was sitting there thinking like she's so that's so true. Like what I can only think of a handful of people, and off the top of my head is like Zendaya is the only childhood actress that is like still big in Hollywood as they've gotten older.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even Miranda, I don't. I know that you did a reboot of iCarly. I didn't even watch that, but she didn't. I don't think she's gone on to really do anything.
Yeah. I haven't seen her in anything like notable.
Yeah,
I We could be wrong. I could just be like under a rock, but nothing big.
nothing like a Zendaya type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, most of the time it's because one, they're not taken seriously, or two, they have some big childhood traumas from the shows or movies that they were on, especially the Nickelodeon kids. Also, shout out to Jennette for calling he who will not be named the creator and not actually naming him in her book. That was a power move there.
Yeah.
But there was that whole documentary on that whole situation with Nickelodeon, I think last year.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I think that it speaks volumes that like she was offered $300,000 in hush money and
and
was
she's
like,
like, no.
"No. That feels like hush money and no." And then
Yeah,
she was like, "I just said no to $300,000."
yeah,
Whoa.
yeah,
But like it speaks a lot about her morals.
yeah. Which is crazy because she was only like 21, 22 at the time when that happened. And it just goes to show she's, even though she was going through a lot, she still was smart enough to not be like, yeah, I'm going to take the money. She was smart enough to be like, yeah, no, this isn't smart. Like, I'm not going to sign your hush money
Yeah.
stuff.
Uh no.
Yeah, but I don't, it was it was just very emotional for me. Not because there were some things I could relate to on a very small level. Um,
Yeah, I expected to be able to like relate to some things, but um like as she got into it, I was like mine was like never that bad. Like I went through a bout where like I didn't eat. I could never force myself to throw up, but I have a phobia of puking. But like I would nibble so much and like break food apart and like hide it so that it looked like I was eating more than I actually was, but like I like that wasn't for very long, and I had somebody that noticed and checked in with me often enough that made me feel like I could stop. And so like I never had like the mental game that she went through, and I was just like, man, I can't even imagine it being that bad.
yeah,
Rough.
yeah, there's so many different um things that like it would be like for me. what I relate to is just like, I don't even know how to describe it, but like the mental game that she talked about of wanting to make other people happy, not herself. Not even, it wasn't even always just her mom, it was other people.
Yeah, she was
And
constantly thinking about how her actions affected other people. Like she during her own like trying to like heal in her process, she dove into her boyfriend's healing so much that she wasn't even focusing on herself anymore.
and I, the part on with her is I'm a people pleaser, like she is, and I care too much about other people that I neglect myself. Because sometimes you do need to be selfish and focus on yourself. Um, and I don't do that. And that was something I had to work on in my own personal therapy, the past handful of years, because I was in such a bad spot that I didn't realize I was neglecting myself. And that's that's where I can connect with it, but definitely not on the level that she was at.
Yeah, it's wild.
But I hope she is doing well now. She's not in acting and she doesn't post on social media, which good for her. Social media can be such a dark place to be as well. People
Yeah.
are just relentless and rude.
Yeah.
So I think she does that probably for her own mental health. And you can only just hope that she's continually working on herself, because I don't think that's something you can get over very quickly. At least I don't think I could get over something like those things that she went through very quickly.
We skipped talking about the book cover. Do you want to talk about that? Uh, the
Yeah, I
the
mean,
pink outfit makes so much more sense now.
yeah, it very looks Mormony to me.
Well, it's not even just like oh, it's the fact that it's pink because she talked about how she actually likes purple more, but she
Yeah,
would
but
always
her
like
mom liked pink.
so she would pretend like pink was her favorite color.
Yeah,
And so I was like, "Oh dang."
yeah. I didn't even remember that until you just talked about it.
Yeah. It like clicked as soon as I like heard it and I was like, "Oh." Which by the way, listening to her talk about it all, I felt like really just like drove home the emotion because you could hear like she was pretty like the same tone for most of the book, but it was really interesting to hear her talk about it because there were parts that she would talk faster about and parts that she talked slower. And I don't know, like it was really interesting to just hear it like straight from the horse's mouth. I really do appreciate when, uh, especially in memoirs, when the person who wrote it and who it's about is the one who reads it.
Hmm.
And I think she did a really good job.
I'm glad you liked this one.
Yeah. Well, and I thought that was really interesting that like she talked about even like with the reboot how Miranda called her and was gonna try and talk her into it and she's like, you can't make me do it. I'm not
Yeah,
going to do it. And like I like that she's the kind of person that she's like, I was forced to do everything for other people my entire life, like I'm not doing it. And
yeah,
she sticks to her guns. Like even her boyfriend, like who thought he was Jesus reincarnated, uh saying that like he wanted to be celibate and she was like, that's not cool with me.
yeah.
Like
I
no.
laughed. I'm not gonna lie. I laughed when I read that
Yeah,
part.
no, seriously, I was
And
just
Jesus
like,
reincarnated. I was like, oh no, something's not right.
yeah, I was like, no way.
um,
No way. Okay, so was there anything that surprised you? Like, what was your biggest, like, whoa moment?
Um, there were so many. I'm trying to think. Okay, the two off the top of my head would be one, her mom, and the whole her being 11 and telling her she should just restrict her calories so she stops growing. And the second one is how nonchalant her stepdad, I guess, was telling her that he's not their biological dad. Bringing his girlfriend, which, first of all, I'm not going to say a timeline for when it's okay to move on after your spouse dies because I hope to God I never go through that. Um, but two, the fact that he got together with her mom's ex best friend is just crazy to me. But the fact that
Within a
he did that,
week.
it was, yeah, I think it was like a month after,
I
2 months
I
after,
think,
something like that.
yeah. But like
But
that,
he was just in a restaurant, brought her there, and was like, I'm not your dad. Like,
yeah.
oh,
Whoa.
okay.
Yeah. Huh?
Which, like, then reading it, not saying it's okay. You understand why he wasn't as invested in the kids. Again, I don't think it was okay that he was that way. But you understand a little bit why he was like not there for the children and sticking up for them. In
Yeah.
his mind, that's his justification, is because they're not his biological kids, which again, emphasizing I do not agree with that.
Yeah. Whether you're a step parent or not, it's definitely like something that you signed up for.
Yeah. Well, he stuck around for because she was cheating on him, but
Yeah. Which
he
makes
stuck
more
around for it.
sense that he was just like, what do you mean?
Yeah, it makes more sense to understand why he moved on so quickly.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your
Uh,
big?
so the thing that really, like, I, the thing that really, like, hit me hard was the fact that, like, her mom, like, would not let her shower herself.
Yeah,
Like, just thinking about that and the fact that, like, her mom would look her over because of, like, her own cancer and the fact that, like, this child is afraid of getting cancer and like essentially had like an out of body experience during it, which like felt very uh non-consensual, an invasion of space,
and
especially
she
like,
did it with her brother when she was younger too.
yeah, like 11. She was talking about like 8 to 11, like her mom would still, like, to save time, have her and her brother like shower together, and she bathed both of them. And I'm just sitting here like, you know, I soak up every moment that I can being my kid's mom and like doing things for him that eventually I won't get to do. But like, I also look forward to him being able to bathe himself.
Mhm.
Like, I'll teach him how to do it right. But then when he's able and doing it by himself, like, that's going to be like a check mark in my book, is like, good job, parent, you did that, your kid knows how to do it, we can move on to the next thing now.
Yeah, doing like I'm in I'm in the bathroom with him, but he cleans himself already because we've taught him that, and he's almost 4. I'm like, okay, wash your body off. And he knows how to get the soap out of the body wash. He knows how to wash himself. He knows how to wash his hair. I still have to wash the soap out of his hair, but every other piece he can get all the soap off of him, all that. Because
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't feel like it'd be appropriate as he's getting older for me to be in the bathroom with him.
Right. And those are things that like we have to teach as parents, and that's why it's just like, she even spoke about how she would be 16 and her mom still insisted on bathing her. Like, think about that. You
I
16.
can't.
And no, that makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I think
It
that,
makes me wonder what her mom had to have some type of mental disorder. And I'm very curious what it would have been.
well, I'm like, what was her childhood trauma? That she, because most of the time parents do things that either their parents did or opposite of their parents because they felt like they didn't get enough or that they weren't given enough
Yeah.
or they were given too much, like a helicopter parent. And so,
Maybe her mom was neglectful because you kind of got to see into what her grandma was. Her grandma even told her she was ungrateful for wanting to sell her house, and her grandma was always on the phone, so maybe grandma was neglectful, so then her mom was a helicopter parent because of that.
just like super on the other realm. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. But like, it just, for me, it's like when I realize that I do something that maybe my parent didn't do, or say something even that, like, you know what? I don't think that that was the right way to handle that. I can self-reflect and change as I like handle situations that I didn't think about, And like in the
Hmm.
moment I'm not thinking, and then afterwards I'm like, I think there was a better way I could have done that.
Yeah.
And like never in my wildest dreams, like would I have a huge crying fit in the car because my kid told me that he wants to do something else other than the thing I chose for him. Like if he told me, "Mom, I don't want to play soccer anymore," I'd be like, "Okay, well what do you want to do?" And then we'll talk about it. Okay? Let's figure out how we can get you into that. Let's finish this season out and then I'll support you. Like
Yeah.
Patrick and I have talked about that, and I'm like, I can't
Especially
even
because you and
imagine.
Patrick.
That was like the most manipulative thing her mom did, was just like,
Yeah.
and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh no.
Especially because you and Patrick played soccer when you were younger. And you still play soccer.
Right? But
But you wouldn't
her
you wouldn't
mom
ever
was living
live.
vicariously through her.
Yes. And you and Patrick wouldn't do that to your little one.
No.
You would, if he would, like you said, would come and be like, I don't like soccer anymore. You'd be like, all right,
Yeah.
well, we did this because we liked it, but
Right?
you don't have to like it.
I
We're each
think
our own individual person.
I think that I would try to be really real with him about like certain situations on like let's say he's 15 and he's like, I don't want to play soccer anymore. I want to dance professionally. It would probably be one of those things where it's like, okay, like we can support you in dance, but to be a professional at it, like this is the hardship that you're going to go through because you're starting at this age.
Hmm.
Like to be real, but to not tell him that he can't do it because, there are those special circumstances, but be real about like that's going to be difficult for you. Here's the hardships that you're going to run through. And there might be some that we don't even know about because we have never done that before.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so wild to me, and it makes me so grateful. Like the childhood that she had, it kind of makes me grateful for like even even the parts of my childhood that I don't necessarily care for,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You owe it when you're younger, you think of like when you get in trouble or your parents do something you don't like, you're like, oh gosh, my parents are the absolute worst. Or like, "Ugh, why did this happen to me? Why couldn't I have it better than like why couldn't my life be like this person's life? This seems so much better." And then you read stories like this and you just want to go back and tell your little 8-year-old self, don't be complaining.
Yeah.
because someone else has it worse than you. Which, of course, as you get older and you become an adult, you do understand. Like, okay, I had it better than other people did, but then when you're little, you don't understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, what about our bingo? Did we get anything? I mean, it was my first 5-star read, but I don't think we can cross that off because it wasn't both of us getting it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I we could put down made us lol because the we both like super laughed at the Jesus part, but unless you're thinking like that one needs to be like the majority of the book.
I think it should be the majority. What about made
I,
us cry? So made
um,
me cry.
it did not make me cry.
Okay, what about a WTF
I
moment?
definitely had those.
Okay, so we can at least mark that off. Did it give you a new perspective?
Yeah, I think it definitely like put some things into perspective for me and made me think about like I mean it definitely made me feel like you know even some of the small things like our reactions our micro disappointments or whatever and how they can affect like my kid growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would put that down.
Okay, cool. So a WTF moment and it gave new perspective, which we forgot to mention on our last episode when we did the housemaid that we did mark off book turned into a movie or TV show because although it's not out yet, the book is being turned into a movie. So we did mark that off last time,
Yes.
which I
So
posted about that on our Instagram.
we are
So
now one space away from our first bingo.
yes, if we
But
get DNA,
yeah, let's which depending on how wild this next book is.
I think that one's gonna be the made us LOL just by the title.
So, speaking of our next book, we are going to read. I've been seeing this around. I'm on fantasy and like romantasy side of TikTok, and when I was looking up a bunch of fun and interesting like books that are coming out in 2025, this one popped up a lot. It's by I believe you pronounce it Kimberly Lemming. Is that
Yeah,
but it's called I Got Abducted by Aliens and Now I'm Trapped in a Rom-Com.
I'm so excited for
I'm
this.
really excited. I think that this one's going to be a like a funny read, so a good comedy. The cover is wild, so take a look at it if you can. And
It, the tagline says lions and dinosaurs and sexy aliens. Oh my.
it's got like I mean, I'm sure that that's an alien, but it definitely
Yeah,
looks like what is the like goat people?
I don't remember.
I don't know either. And then
I'm trying
there's
to think of what they're called in Narnia. Because that's so, I know there's the goat people, the goat
Mr.
guy in Narnia.
Tomness,
Yeah.
but it looks like a human girl being carried by this like humanoid goat with a lion in the background. And
And a
the
dinosaur.
lion looks like he has a wrap around his paw.
Yeah.
And then it does that dinosaur look furry to you?
Yeah. Well, I think, side note, scientific fact. I'm pretty sure scientists have come out and said that some dinosaurs do have feathers on them.
Yeah,
So I think this T Rex must have feathers on him.
yeah, must. And so, I don't know, this seems
It's a
so
little
wild.
troubling.
So, Kara, what is your prediction about
Okay.
this book?
So I think she's on some type of safari because of her outfit and she has a camera. I think she's on a safari and the dinosaur is trying to like attack the lion, and maybe her and this alien who's like super strong and has powers comes and saves her.
Interesting. Okay, so I I agree with like the overarching thing, but I think that instead of a safari, her shirt looks like a NASA shirt. And so I think that she's like out doing some kind of like
Research
research, yeah. And
in the jungle. It looks like it's in the jungle.
well, I think that that's going to be like she's abducted by aliens and now she's trapped in a rom-com. I think that that's the planet that she gets abducted to. And so I think that maybe she was like in space or like on a ship or doing some type of research that was space related. And now this like new planet is where she's at. And I think that maybe the alien is like, I don't know, maybe he was been watching her and like is infatuated with her and just takes her to his planet. That's what I think.
I'm very curious about his tail. It looks like there's a bell on the end of it. It doesn't come to a point at the end.
Yeah, it almost
But
looks like a hoof, in my
that's like
opinion.
interesting.
I don't know. This seems so bizarre. Like, multiple things here that I just would never put together in my own brain. So I'm excited to read it, and I really hope that. Uh,
I hope I laugh a lot because it's a rom com. I hope it. I really also hope it's not cheesy.
yeah. I'm not
Okay.
reading. I'm not reading the synopsis, but like, it's better than I would have thought it was going to be rating wise on Goodreads. So
Okay.
we'll see.
All right.
I'm
So
excited to find out.
just a quick recap. So because we talked about how we would put at the end if people didn't want to listen to the whole thing for trigger warnings. Um, I rated it, me, Carrison, at a 5. Chris rated it at a 4. Um, one word for me to describe the book would be brave. One word for Chris would be, what did you say again?
Sorry, what?
What was the word? One
Yeah,
word you would. Oh
sorry,
yeah,
what?
what? And then,
Look at your text message.
oh, sorry, I have my notifications turned off. Oh, you already made it. Okay, I'm gonna redo it. Okay, here's the overview. I rated it out of 5. Chris out of 4. I read it physical. Well, it was ebook physical. Chris did audiobook. A short description for me. I said brave. Chris said sorry. What? Biggest wow. Me was the calorie counting by her mom, and then Chris was her being showered by her mom. And then would we recommend? We both said yes. So there is our short little overview of it, and I'm just very glad we read this book. It was a good one. Very happy with it.
Yeah, I am too. And like like you said, totally recommend as long as like the triggers aren't too triggering for you. I would definitely suggest adding it to your bookshelf.
100% add this to your TBR. And I liked reading it as an audiobook, but I personally think I would have liked it better. I said audio. I liked reading it as an ebook. I think I would have liked it better as an audiobook because, like Chris said, she really liked how Jennette actually read the book.
Yeah.
So, if we could say one way to read it, audiobook.
Also, we learned in the book that if you ever see Jennette in person, don't call her Sam, call
Yeah.
her by her
Don't
real
make
name.
any don't make any iCarly jokes with her. Okay, which honestly, when it comes to any actor or actress or celebrity, call them by their real name. I'm sure they don't think any of like the character jokes are funny. I'm sure they've heard it way too many times.
Yeah.
But all right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you follow us on our social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So we will see you next time when we discuss I got abducted by aliens and now I'm trapped in a rom-com. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening on today's episode of the To Be Read podcast, where we discussed I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. Join us next time as we review I Got Abducted by Aliens and Now I'm Trapped in a Rom-Com by Kimberly Lemming.